Ja, mein Name ist Volker Meitz und ich organisiere das hier so ein bisschen. Oh, by the way, we might also switch to English sometimes. Who would prefer English? You. Not too many. Yesterday was the majority who would prefer English. Well, we can sometimes speak English. It's my favorite. But I might, speak German and you might answer in English. Whatever you feel like. Cool. Obviously, we're gonna speak a lot of English to include you, right? Yes.
Well, I can practice my German.
Yes. Die zwei, drei Worte. You taught me 2 Serbian words, which I still don't remember today.
You see it? How could I know all these words in German? Yeah.
But while I'm talking to you, I might just ask you. So because you're, did you actually relocate full time to Basel now?
Yeah.
Since your professorship?
Yeah.
Excellent. So before that, you were located in Belgrade directly?
Yeah.
Okay. So how much of a change was that for you in terms of, I don't know, culture, music, and everything, language?
So we started with questions.
Yes, I mean, we're right in the middle of talking. Yes.
Well, I was playing quite a lot before I moved to Switzerland there, and I already knew I knew the network of experimental music and the music that I'm interested in. So in some way, it wasn't new at all. But of course, the job itself was completely new. I never thought that I would have this job or planned or like really wished for in this sense of like aiming to get this job. But this was the constellation of some circumstances that led to this, and yeah, I'm quite happy with it. So it was quite like so this was the new thing that with my moving to Basel, that it was quite something new and unexpected. But music-wise, I already knew the scene, and I felt I didn't have to like fit in. I was feeling super comfortable already there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Talking about fitting in the scene, I have to kind of mix the questions so that everybody gets the same. Yesterday, we had Sine Emmelut, which is also from Norway, as you are from Norway. And well, actually, Sine is from Denmark and moved to Norway, actually. And I found we talked about the differences of the scenes in Denmark and Norway, and she mentioned that the Norwegian scene is particularly liberal in terms of, in her view, in terms of that that you can whatever do what you want. Nobody's gonna try to put you in certain boxes and stuff.
I think that's especially true, like in the jazz education there.
Mm-hmm.
I studied in Trondheim, and I believe Signal also studied there, and that was kind of the first school. They started up in '79 with the purpose of doing everything based on what you can hear, not putting any like genre requirements on their students.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has what came out of that has kind of made that music really blossom.
Okay.
When I was studying there was the years above me had like these 3 super loud screaming tenor players. Whenever we played at a jam session, there would be like an Albert Eiler version of a Norwegian children's song or something being played. And then the year under me was like what was the indie pop year, so everyone was playing indie pop and being really cool. So like, yeah, and in these like very small classes, it's like 15 people in total per year. So yeah, it really changes what the style is there from year to year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds great. So how do you find the contrast in Berlin, in this case?
The biggest contrast to here, I think, is like the scene is much bigger for improvised music here than it is, especially in Trondheim, but also in Oslo, where kind of the scene exists in Norway, where there's enough people to have an improvising scene. But there you have much more crossover between different things. Like the improvising scene here gets a bit more like we're the improvising guys and we only do improvising stuff. But there you kind of also the jazz people who are like more straight ahead also do more freer jazz. There's less of that. There still is that commingling of scenes here, but there it's really almost overlapping.
Oh, okay. Ich switche mal wieder zu Deutsch. Michael, du bist ja jetzt auch schon sehr langjährig anwesend. Wie lange bist du schon in Berlin?
30 Jahre.
In Berlin?
Ja.
Okay. Und ursprünglich kommst du aus Hannover oder in der Gegend?
Ich bin geboren in Nürnberg und bin dann aber mit 15 nach Hannover gezogen und bin dann mit 25 ungefähr nach Berlin gezogen.
Ah. Würdest du das teilen, die Beobachtung, die dann gerade gemacht hat, dass man in Berlin eher so, jeder so seine Szene und seine kleine Unterszene hat, man sich nicht so wahnsinnig viel berührt? Oder wie?
Das hat sich in den letzten 30 Jahren so langsam in diese Richtung entwickelt, weil einfach so viele Leute da sind. Das war, was mich am Anfang an Berlin angezogen hat, war eben genau das Gegenteil. Dass es eben nicht diese Cliquen von verschiedenen Leuten gab, die was gemacht haben. Es hatte auch damit zu tun, dass es gar nicht nötig war, sich in irgendwelche bestehenden Verbindungen einzupassen, weil am Anfang, also eben nach dem Fall der Mauer, war hier quasi Neuland und es ging irgendwie von vorne los. Es gab keine Machtstrukturen, in die man sich einpassen musste, wie das sonst ist, wenn man in eine andere Stadt kommt. Das hat sich natürlich in den letzten 30 Jahren ja auch ein bisschen so entwickelt, aber dadurch, dass immer noch relativ wenig Geld hier ist, ist es noch ziemlich weit offen. Es gibt nicht so viel zu verteilen, es gibt deswegen auch nicht so viele Grabenkriege in der Szene. Und deswegen finde ich das im Verhältnis zu anderen Städten relativ offen hier. Aber dadurch, dass es eben wirklich jetzt so viele Leute geworden sind, ist es einfach nicht mehr so wie früher, dass man sich einfach nach ein paar Wochen automatisch begegnet, sondern manchmal dauert es Jahre, bis man sich das erste Mal überhaupt zur Kenntnis nimmt und man wohnt in der gleichen Stadt und kriegt es gar nicht mit. Und dadurch verbinden sich diese Szenen nicht mehr automatisch, wie das früher der Fall war, als es einfach weniger Leute waren.
Danke, interessante Beobachtung. Ja. Jetzt würde ich sagen, wir können ja mal was ganz anderes besprechen, und zwar Stimme und Instrument. Voice and Instrument. Ihr seid ja beide jetzt Leute, die spielen ihr Instrument als das Externe vom Körper und benutzen noch ein Instrument im Körper. I'm gonna switch to English and you can answer in whatever language you like. So what does this mean to you, using your voice while playing cello? Is this like a different thing altogether, or is it like one extension of the other? How did it come up that you use the voice?
For me, voice is very connected to the body, so more than the cello, and it comes directly from the body, so it's more vulnerable for me. I didn't go to any school, so it's my own research on voice, so it feels very personal. More than the cello, because I went through the whole classical education in the classical music school, so cello was very trained, like constrained and trained.
Okay, so could you say that you, in one way, you have the cello as the more, you went through different shapings or whatever, and your voice is the more natural,
for sure.
more personal. Interesting. Wie ist es denn bei dir, Karl Ludwig?
Ich habe die Stimme eigentlich schon immer benutzt, auch, aber das geheim gehalten. Also
im Badezimmer so.
Nee, ich bin eigentlich Rockmusiker und ich habe in der Rockband habe ich viel mit der Stimme gemacht. Ich habe mit meinem besten Freund abendelang unter Drogen Quatsch aufgenommen und gesungen. wirklich intensive, lange Abende. Und habe dann dieses Feld so weiter verfolgt. Erstmal habe ich versucht, so kleine, für mich so Popmusik-Sachen zu machen, die ich aber lieber niemand zeigen wollte, weil es mir eigentlich so ein bisschen peinlich war. Also kann man ja kein ernst genommener Musiker sein, wenn man so einen Quatsch macht oder irgendwie sowas Oberflächliches oder so. Und dann habe ich irgendwann das eingesetzt in Theatermusiken. Da habe ich dann auch mal zum Beispiel mir so ein Zuspielband gemacht, wo ich dann auf der Bühne war und die ganze Zeit gesungen habe, unter anderem Heroes von David Bowie, oder habe dann auch Versionen von bekannten Stücken gemacht. Und das heißt, die Stimme hat mich immer begleitet. Und in Corona habe ich dann irgendwann gefunden, ach, jetzt integriere ich das mal, nachdem ich auch schon so improvisative Stücke mit der Stimme gemacht habe, jetzt integriere ich das mal in mein sonstiges Tun. Und da du das vorhin angesprochen hast, finde ich es auch sehr spannend, sozusagen zu überlegen. Es ist ja jetzt auch so ein bisschen in Mode gerade, dass viele Leute anfangen, die Stimme mit einzusetzen, und weil es ja vielleicht auch damit zu tun hat, dass man sich da ganz direkt zeigt und unmittelbar hörbar ist und nicht übersetzt durch ein Instrument, was ja spannend ist auch. Und für mich war es wichtig, das immer wieder zu trennen. Also nicht, genau.
Okay, switch to English. You were just talking about the instrument of your voice being the most kind of direct, and that's what I gathered from what we just said, because you said the other thing you have kind of translate for your instrument. Does that mean it's less immediate, maybe?
No, that's the other thing that I kind of noticed after all this, these idiosyncratic things I do on the tuba. At some point I ask myself, I do so much work, I apply so much work on that instrument so it doesn't sound like a tuba. That's really amazing.
Extend the technique to the max. Yeah.
And then at that point it occurred to me that the tuba is actually nothing else but a Flüstertüte.
A resonator, right?
Resonator, yeah, it's just nothing like, except you have to buzz. Okay, that makes it a little bit complicated, but the rest is, it's just a long tube and you can speak through it.
Yeah.
It's a telephone, basically.
Yeah, actually, this makes cool. Telephone, that's a nice idea.
Yeah.
So, what would you compare your bass to?
I just would like to comment that like trying to make your tuba sound like anything other than the tuba, I think that's like the mark of a good tuba player. And yeah, I mean, I guess I could do the same thing on electric bass, except it's not a telephone.
No. It's a handbrett.
It's connected to a telephone, I guess.
It's a wire.
Yeah.
You can wire things.
Yeah. I mean, other than the instrument itself, I mean, if you think about the improvisation itself, the act of improvising, how do you prepare when before you play solo, or you just stand there and whatever comes out of you is right there?
Typically, it's very in the moment. I tend to find some piece of the instrument to focus on and make little pieces based on that area of the instrument. And do a few of those. Sometimes things connect, sometimes they don't. But rarely any like direct vorbereiting.
Preparation.
Preparation. Yes.
Okay. So you kind of are trying to be in the moment. You mentioned being in the moment, right? Is that a hard thing to do?
No.
Okay.
So I mean, for all of us, most of us, in the moment right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for some people, I mean, it's really interesting because I really get really different answers from depending on who I am. I ask this question every year, so just to people.
I think for different people, like different ways of preparation are most effective for getting where they want to get.
Ja. Michael, wie geht's dir denn damit? Bist du auch total im Moment? Oder überlegst du dir vorher irgendwas, was du machen willst?
Ich denke immer, dass ich mir was vornehmen sollte und was planen sollte. Ich bin sehr schlecht dabei zu planen. Und Außerdem vergesse ich dann immer, was ich mir vorgenommen hatte. Also ich fange einfach an zu spielen und gucke, wo die Reise hingeht. Ich spiele das Instrument ja dann doch auch schon recht lange und eigentlich jedes Teil davon hat irgendwie schon so eine Geschichte mit mir und im Grunde habe ich das Gefühl, das spielt sich eigentlich von alleine. Ich mache da gar nichts. Ich sitze da nur dran und höre zu, was da passiert.
Du siehst ja sozusagen, hörst dir selber beim Spielen
Genau.
zu.
Ja.
Das ist super.
Und dann reagiere ich da drauf und dann geht das irgendwo anders hin oder vielleicht auch nicht. Also, aber ich bin eigentlich fast unbeteiligt, habe ich das Gefühl.
Das ist schön. Das ist schön. Okay, und jetzt machen wir doch noch ganz zum Schluss die Unavoidable Gear Talk. Weil du hast ja da ein Schlagzeug, das ist schön klein und handlich. Und ich habe dich da ankommen sehen. I watched you get in this afternoon with a Handwagen.
Ja,
With a Hacken Porsche.
Ich habe das alles zu Fuß hergebracht. Das passt alles in diesen Koffer, dann auf eine kleine Sackkarre, die Gepäcktasche auf dem Rücken. Und das hat sich so über die letzten Jahre und Jahrzehnte angesammelt. Ist alles optimiert darauf hin, dass es gut klingt und dass es aber auch leicht und handlich ist. Und man kann es gut zusammenpacken und wie gesagt dann zu Fuß zum Konzert gehen.
Nie wieder Auto.
Ja, also ich auch gerne Auto natürlich gelegentlich, weil es natürlich dann doch weniger anstrengend, aber es muss zumindest nicht sein.
Okay.
Und ja, wie gesagt, jede von den Trommeln hat die Geschichte. Die älteste ist die hier drüben, die ist aus den 20er Jahren, also ungefähr 100 Jahre alt. Die Snare Drum hier habe ich mir bauen lassen vor ungefähr 10 Jahren. Die Basstrommel habe ich gefunden in Tucson, Arizona, in einem Musikgeschäft. Da war so ein ganzes Stockwerk, war wie so ein Friedhof der Schlagzeuge, hunderte von auseinandergenommenen Trommeln und dann habe ich das da gesehen und habe es mitgenommen. Und ja, es hat sich so nach und nach zusammengesammelt und ja, es ist schon, ich kann schon sagen, es ist mein Instrument.
Und war das eher so, was war denn hat den Ausschlag, also gegeben, dass du mit so einem Kit unterwegs bist, eher ist das praktisch der Sound oder ist das ein Style oder die Praktikabilität, was ist so?
Das Ganze ging eigentlich damit los, dass ich eine Zeit lang viel in der Schweiz gespielt habe. Und es war immer sehr schwierig, mir dann dort ein Schlagzeug zu organisieren. Und habe ich einfach so Trommeln, die noch übrig waren, in die Schweiz gepackt, habe sie bei einem Freund von mir in den Keller gestellt, damit ich mein Instrument da hatte. Und da war diese Basstrommel mit dabei und ein kleines Snare. Und das klang aber dann so gut, dass ich es dann irgendwann wieder abgeholt habe und dann damit hier weitergemacht habe. Es ist so, dass diese kleinen, flachen Trommeln relativ schnell ansprechen. Das heißt, die entwickeln einen vollen Sound, werden aber nicht so laut dabei. Also einfach, weil die Luftsäule geringer ist und das heißt, die klingen relativ voluminös, sind aber in Wirklichkeit gar nicht so laut, wie sie klingen. Und gerade wenn man sehr viel in so akustischen Kontexten spielt, wo sich niemand verstärkt, ist das dann ganz dankbar.
Ja, klingt super. Sehr schön. More gear talk in English. Okay, so actually, maybe I have actually a double question for you. Now, because we were talking about improvisation and well, using voice or using instruments. Obviously, you and together with Michael have an instrument which actually consists of various components. And so, but probably in contrast to Michael, it's electronic. So you also have a screen which you can use, and there's stuff to read on there. So obviously you have to kind of, I think you have to kind of a different approach because maybe your rational area has to do something. You have to maybe apply logic. You have to like work the machine and stuff. So how do you manage intuitive performance with this kind of setup?
Well, I think it's not much different than any other instrument because I think we all do this kind of visual mapping, right? When you play whatever acoustic instrument, you know where you have to do something to reach a sound. And for me, the same. I just use a little tablet basically as a score. Like there, I see what will happen if I touch this and this at the same time, etc. So I think these visual cues we have with every instrument, like acoustic or digital or whatever kind. So these are my visual cues that connect all these things that they tell me like how to reach something, some sound. Because I tend to think about the way I build my setup. Like I think about acoustic instrument as a sort of like a role model because they're however complex the sounds are or however weird sounds you make, and with using extended techniques or whatever, I mean, you always know how to get to them. And for something that doesn't have any rules, like electronic instrument, because you start making it, you have to pre-design these things.
Right.
So basically, I have a lot of work pre-designing this in order then to be able to play it, to have this like playful experience where I don't actually do what you said. I don't calculate much. There's not much logic. It's actually really super simple, kind of how it works. So I tend to get it as close as possible to the way of playing an acoustic instrument.
Okay, so that's the effort you spend into actually getting everything prepared lets you perform very intuitively in the end.
Sort of.
Right. I just heard you say that what happens if I touch this thing once, or if I touch this thing and the other thing at the same time. So that would include like a minimum of logic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but in pre-planning. Like,
okay.
I mean, this is something that I'm super excited about, and it's also a lot of manual work. Nothing like when you think of computer music, not so much of programming or something, but really like mapping things, etc. So that it's not that simple. I really like exploring these ways of interaction. That it's not only that I touch one thing, but like if I touch this one, this will influence the sound also of the other one. So it's super kind of interconnected.
Okay.
So this kind of like a bit more complex way of interaction that's there brings this playfulness and playability into it. And it's important that it becomes playful for me, so that I have fun, and that also I can end up in places that maybe I didn't plan.
Okay. Oh yeah. Right. You surprise yourself sometimes, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. I set it up, but then I can also explore it.
Right.
Playing it.
Okay. Yeah. So while we're at this setup, would you care to tell us a little bit about what how this works? I mean, obviously with a lot of other instruments, you can see people touch this, and then this card comes on. Here it seems a bit more abstract, maybe for some people. So what I'm interested in, what are the sources that are using as initial sound sources, and what the processing is like?
Yeah, well, for computer music, this is something like really super simple and basic. And I'm not so ashamed to say that I'm a MIDI person. I just love MIDI, and I think with all these like simple 127 steps, you can do a lot if you just like connect things in some sort of logic that's fitting. And to be honest, like I usually let people try out my set, but after I played. So maybe now it's not the time, but maybe after the concert you can come and check how everything works, because I think it makes a lot of sense. You will see how I use it, but then you're very free to connect what I'm now talking about with after you've tried it out. I mean, I think that's the best.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe I would just like to point out one other thing that kind of maybe makes it's not a statement, but kind of my relation to technology is that like I really like devices and instruments that are also experimental, also in this MIDI world, that are kind of like cheap and available, because I think just by approaching them with this logic of this how you can make things interactive in different ways, you can make a lot with them, and I think I'm really on this side of that like cheap gear and simple but very good instruments that you don't have to pay a lot for are actually the best ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of the way that you kind of add them into your setting, the way you play them makes it kind of unique, obviously.
Yeah.
So great. Well, listen for this in the performance. Very good. Last question to Julia, because we were talking about voice, and now we might talk about movement. Maybe you said you might be moving around. Maybe not. Wrong question.
What was the question?
The question was there was kind of trigger words you might pick up on. Because you said when we were doing sound check, you said this microphone there, I might just get up and move around. And you do this a lot when.
But you're spoiling everything. Come on.
I was going to ask about like
Yeah.
certain techniques about. Okay. No.
Now he can't do it because he spoiled it.
Okay. Well, I mean, now you can't play bass because I announced it.
That's
And
true.
also,
But you could move.
Which instruments have you tried?
All right. So I think it's time to get moving or playing music or whatever. So thanks everybody for this lovely talk, and we'll start.